Hey everyone, Jennifer Stats here with Stat Solutions, and I wanted to introduce you to our very first mastermind. We had the pleasure of interviewing Justin Benson, the owner and CEO of Bara Agency. We spent some time chatting about how he started his agency and how he helps teams scale their business by looking at their back-end systems and systematizing it with all the various CRMs and reporting systems that we and realtors across the board use. You're definitely going to want to take notes. Good.
Yeah, totally. Well, first, thanks for having me on. This is awesome. I feel honored to be a part of the very first one here. This is the kickoff, So
Yeah.
I'm excited to look back on this one day when you have a 5,000 person mastermind going and you're breaking Zoom, and I'm like, hey, that was the first one. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks for being on. We appreciate it.
Funny background. I'll try to give the elevator pitch story, but there's context to how we got to where we are now. So a long time ago, I graduated with a biochem degree, thought I wanted to become a doctor. I was raised by two parents that are serial entrepreneurs. So instead of flipping houses, they flipped companies independently of each other. They didn't do it together. They did it on their own, aside from each other. So I grew up in a real weird household where I wanted to buy a dirt bike when I was 12, and my dad basically helped me build a lawn mowing company. And I had employees, and I was renting lawnmowers from neighbors and buying my own gas and having to balance my own stuff. And I was essentially running a business, and he would just take me down to hire labor and all kinds of fun stuff. And he got me all the way to being halfway there. My birthday's on Christmas Eve, and there was a dirt bike sitting under the Christmas tree that year. And just a note that said, "Love you, bud. Really proud of you. I took the money out of your account." He met me halfway, right? So I'd made $3,000 in a summer as a 12-year-old, which was really, really cool. So that was the weird household I came up in. And then my parents had the bright idea that, you're smart. You should stay out of this entrepreneur world. It's too up and down. You should be a doctor. You should do that instead. And I got face to face with 12 years of more school, and then 4 years of fellowship after that, and then only working on right knees for the rest of my life. And I got scared and said, no, I don't want to do it. So 3 months before I was supposed to start med school, just pulled the plug and said, nope, I'm out. And started a small IT company with a good buddy of mine, Aaron Tracy, called Link Technology. That was company number one. We were building cloud storage for small companies that before Dropbox existed. So the ability for small companies to access their files from anywhere, which was really cool because I had been a kind of secret computer nerd my entire life. I was the sports guy up front. Played baseball at ASU, and then afterwards coming home and building computers and playing video games all night long, basically. So that was kind of secretly who I was, and this was my first chance to actually be that person. So we ended up having to sell the company because he got the dream job to become a systems engineer for Disney Studios. And he became senior systems engineer at Disney Studios. So it's his job to keep hackers out of Disney's servers, basically the movie side of things. So
awesome.
Pretty cool. So that was my first foray into technology. And then after that, I built a big company with a buddy named Scott Donald called Apex Fun Run, which is a fundraising company for elementary schools. And that made Inc. magazine's top 500 franchises in the nation. It was a freaking blast doing it. Throughout the state of Arizona, I was known as Jedi Justin by every elementary school kid. That was my name, and being in schools doing fun runs and stuff. So it was a blast. And the day that I signed papers to exit the company, I was just supposed to get married. A month from then, I was going to take the month off, get married, go on a honeymoon, figure out what I was going to be when I grew up all over again. But instead, I got a phone call literally the day I was on my way to this place called Four Peaks, a little brewery here to celebrate. And I got a call on my way there from my old friend, John Glutch, who, if anybody's in the EXP world, a lot of people know who John is. And he said, "Hey man, I know you're doing that fundraising elementary school thing, but have you ever thought about building a real estate company?" No, never in my wildest dreams have I thought about building a real estate company. No, not at all. But I was honored that he asked me. I mean, our families are close. His daughter is my goddaughter. His father-in-law married my wife and I. So instead of taking the month off, I went and got a real estate license. came back, started building what was then just the John Glutch home selling team, which looking back was the worst name in the world. It was just me and John in our hoodies and board shorts in our crappy office in Scottsdale, like high-fiving every time the phone rang because it was such a big deal. And now that team spans 3 states and sells a bunch of houses. And John is like a figurehead at EXP. I mean, I didn't have any part of that EXP thing. That was him building that all on his own, which is freaking cool to see. And that was like my first foray into real estate. I sold under, like, me personally, like 500 plus houses and my time being there. And I have held every single position that there is to hold on a real estate team, like transaction coordinator, listing coordinator, team leader, listing manager, you name it, outside sales agent. I've done it all, ISA. So what's cool is that I kind of took my nerd power from my past and coupled it with the business building expertise that I had. And what was cool is that, you know, technology was never a limiting factor for us as a company. I could build whatever the heck we needed to build. I mean, I joke about this now, but at one point I built Big Brother because I wanted to, basically, I wanted to monitor call response time and text response time and email response time from first coming in to the initial one going out on all modes of communication to ensure that our response times to clients and vendors were at an appropriate amount. So I had built Big Brother. Well, funny enough, not everybody loves that. And so that was a bad idea. But you know, basically we could build anything, and it was great. And the only reason I ever stepped away from the Glutch Group is I got a weird deviation in my life where me and 3 friends, well, two friends, got a dream opportunity to get signed by a record label and write 3 records for record labels. So that became like a full-time thing for 2 years, and that was the only reason I stepped away from the Glutch Group, because I couldn't really dedicate enough time to do both. So immediately after that, I got bored because I guess writing songs wasn't enough. So I started doing real estate consulting, and I was consulting for some big lenders and real estate teams, and I fell in love with this gal's model who was basically taking young airmen at an Air Force base and teaching them not to do something dumb with their base housing allowance, like buy a motorcycle or something, but instead use their 0% down entitlement to buy a house, get all their friends that are too scared to do it to move in with them and live off base with them, only pay $300 a month for your own mortgage, and then use the rest of your base housing allowance now to go buy a motorcycle. And these guys were PCSing out, transferring out of Luke Air Force Base with 50, 100 grand in their bank account. And I married into a military family, so I know that, like, I even saw it, you know, a lot of people were coming from some pretty like low socioeconomic backgrounds, right? And this was actually changing their lives for forever. And I had sworn to myself that I was never going to start another real estate team, that I was just burnt out. I didn't want to do it again. And I think for a long time, I was trying to trick myself into thinking I was making the world a better place some way by saying, oh yeah, if they use us as a company, then their experience is going to be better. Like, I was trying to create, and here was this girl all along, like, actually making a difference in the world, like changing people's life trajectories for forever. So I decided to burn down all the consulting and helped her build what is now the #1 VA real estate team in all of Arizona. So that was like the second team that I built. So after that, I literally took 6 months off, ended up in Valle de Guadalupe in Mexico for this event that Kyle Whistle and Dan Beer were doing, just some big EXP recruiting event. I honestly was not there to be a part of the event. I was there to hang out with my friends. So I was going to drink margaritas by the pool all day, wait for them to get done doing whatever the heck they were doing in that room, and then, you know, hang out with them. Well, yeah. Lo and behold, you know, I get hoodwinked into talking to people about technology and stuff that I had done. And John Glutch was there at that event as well and introduced me to some people. And I had, you know, 6 job offers on the backside of that. Hey, do you want to come do that over here? And the thought occurred to me first was like, respectfully, no, I don't want to do that. Second of all, I knew that the fractional CFO world worked. I knew that the fractional CMO world worked, but I had never really seen a fractional CTO, Chief Technology Officer. I'd never seen a model out there like that. And I understood some of the limitations to it and why people didn't go into it, but none of that really scared me. So we essentially what these team leaders were looking for is not just an integrator, but somebody that they can hand their entire technology stack off to, like all of it. So they can just say things like, I want YLOPO. I want Sisu. Okay, awesome. Sounds great. We'll come back to you whenever you have Sisu, and it will be integrated all the way into your world, basically, in some really cool ways. That's what they were looking for. And that skill set is kind of above and beyond what most real estate teams have staffed. And it honestly, salary wise, to hire me full time is too much for a real estate company. And then I can't do it on my own. I need a developer with me as well. So pretty soon you're up to 400, 500 grand a year in salaries for just a couple people. And well, that's just too much. And real estate teams, honestly, we have some teams that sell 4,000 plus houses a year, and even they don't have 40 hours a week worth of that kind of work. So we decided to try out this fractional CTO thing, tried it out with 3 people, and it worked marvelously. So we raised some funding around it, hired kind of ahead of the growth, because as soon as I started letting people know about it, we got inundated a little too fast. So raised some money and hired and trained. And now we have backend developers and senior systems architects and one data scientist and director of operations, and me over here really making it go around. So really what we are now, what we've developed into is we are a fractional CTO company. We become our team's CTO. So it's not like hiring RealSync or somebody like that to build some one-off thing for you, right? Hiring us is a little bit more like hiring an employee that you couldn't hire for cheaper for the skill set anywhere else, basically, right? So what we are is we become that. I care a ton about like response times. Everything is underneath an hour to all of our clients. And honestly, everything that we build, there's 2 clauses in our contract that are the most important to me. One is you guys, whoever our client is, they own everything that we build for them. So it's not going to be some situation where we build a system for them and then charge them $300 a month for forever to keep the thing on. We build it on their systems, on their software, on their servers, and then afterwards leave very detailed videos on this is exactly how the thing works. So in the event that it doesn't work out with us, or God forbid, something tragic happens to our whole company at once or something, they're not left, trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces. They have everything they need, and they own all of those videos and all the technology anyways. And then that second clause is a NDA. So I am not at liberty to share the stuff that we're working on for our clients, because some of that stuff is top secret. Honestly, it's stuff that they didn't think was possible before. And now with us, it is possible, but we've gotten as fancy as machine learning algorithms that read real estate purchase contracts, extrapolate all the data out of it automatically, and say, kick off your Sisu checklist automatically, things like that. We have gotten really, really into. So, yeah.
I think that was one of the biggest things. I think you showed that. I watched something somewhere, and it was that you had done just that, like taken their contract and literally like the agent just uploaded it and it like started the whole workflow. And I was like, whoa, that's game changing for a lot of our teams, because they always have, an admin somewhere doing something to like start the next workflow, or we're relying on agents to do it. And we all know how well sometimes that works out when the dates are wrong and it kicks everything off incorrectly.
Well, and there's so many ways around that. Like we just got done with a real big project where you fill out one form, and by form, it's not like how would I say it? Like it's not a form that you're used to, like a Cognito form. This is a true blue. Am I able to screen share on my side? Are you able to turn that on for me?
Yep. There you go.
All right, cool. So, let's build a form like this. So this is a true blue dynamic form. Tina Cowell, one of our clients, this is their under contract form here. So this first drop down, that just hit Sisu and pulled every agent that they have in Sisu. So you click that, and then you click the next drop down, and this is going to pull all the transactions assigned to them under that are not closed or lost, basically. So they pick the correct person that they want to edit or modify. So I don't know, let's look at seller signed here. And voila, it just hit their CRM, both their actual CRM and Sisu, trying to autofill as much of this as humanly possible. So that way the agent wasn't responsible for, copying and pasting addresses and emails and stuff that already exists in the database, right? And then from there, the big project that we just got done with is, it wasn't for call group, but essentially what it does is you fill out a form like that, upload your documents, and the documents are immediately renamed to a correct naming structure, essentially. So in Arizona, it would be like RPC dash whatever the address is. buyer disclosure, BD dash, whatever that naming convention is, automatically put in their Dropbox folder. Then those files are taken from the folder afterwards. Their transaction management software gets kicked off, and then it starts the file automatically in their brokerage backend. So that all happens from just one form submit. So just literally getting rid of 3 steps of double or triple entry in that case. Is something that people thought previously. Honestly, myself, 3 years ago, I thought that was impossible. But we've now that it's our full-time job to mess around and try to figure out new ways to do that stuff, we've figured out that it's possible. So
yeah. Do you hear Lisa, which is on my team? She's one of our operations managers. Like trying to like, oh, this is so good.
Thinking, how do you get all those APIs to connect to each other?
I mean, it's not, at the end of the day, you just need to know how to code in JavaScript, so that really is, and have an understanding of the APIs and what they do. That honestly is the hardest part about creating. It's the reason why a lot of people haven't tried a fractional CTO thing, is because to train yourself and developers, an entire team, on 17 different softwares and their APIs. And guess what? Not all APIs are created equally. Some APIs honestly suck really bad, and their documentation is terrible. And what they say should happen does not happen. And you're left on your own to figure it out. Or you have really great APIs like Sisu or Follow Up Boss that is documented really well. And you can kind of expect that whatever is there will actually return to you, right? So, getting them to connect to each other honestly is the simpler part. As long as we have it. Our holdbacks, the only time we ever have to say no is if an API just is not capable or the software is not capable, right? So like a good example would be a CRM that doesn't have custom fields. Okay, well, we're kind of hand tied to like sticking to the fields that they have. And some of those fields will not serve us well in trying to create really perfect syncs between another system like Sisu. So then we end up having to build transition pages like you just saw, or a bridge page or something else that really helps people map things, opposed to it just being automatic. So the only time we ever have to say no is when the API is just capable of it. So.
Okay. I mean, the majority of the clients that we have at Stats generally use a combination of either open to close or Sisu or CTE, Follow Up Boss, and YLOPO, which I know you've worked with all those. Are you allowed to share anything that you've done with some of those programs that you feel like has been really successful? Yeah,
totally. So here's the cool thing is that at each of those companies that you just mentioned, we have our own dedicated like Bara Agency team that exists at those companies. So if we have somebody that wants to go to Follow Up Boss, or we have a client, then they get moved underneath that account manager. Same thing with YLOPO, same thing with Sisu. It's all put together. And the cool thing with CTE is I've been using CTE for a long, long time, back when it was a very rudimentary spreadsheet. And I'm actually working with Calvin right now to create their first Zapier integration to be able to help automatically add things to the My Business tab when transactions kick off, right? So every software that you just talked about, we have really great relationships with and have a long working history with. So it's fun. I mean, as far as an open to close, Andrew, the COO, he lives here in Arizona. Me and Shane, as CTO, went out and grabbed dinner just a few weeks ago whenever Shane was in town. So we have built all kinds of cool stuff to integrate all of that stuff kind of together. You have some teams where it gets real complex. They want to use open to close and they want to use Sisu. They use Sisu for reporting. They use open to close for transactions, but they want to use only one form system or one way to disseminate all that information to two. Well, guess what? A sync from one single contact record to potential many transaction records already is a little bit of a nightmare. Any sync that's one to many is really hard to do. Now you're doing one to many and many in two systems, right? So we work a lot with Daniel Poston over at Interface to dial in a very custom way a lot of the form systems, that really awesome stuff that he's created over there to make those things a possibility for our clients. Because I'm honestly, I've told Daniel that we could build Interface basically on the back end, but like I don't want to do that. He's had 3 years in front of me of troubleshooting and debugging and making it awesome. And for the price per month, no, all day long, I'm going to tell our clients it makes way more sense to just use Daniel and his system, and we'll tune it to be exactly what you want to, because we have access to the back end, opposed to paying us 100 hours worth of time to get you guys some custom thing that now you have to maintain for forever, right? So it makes more sense to not reinvent the wheel in a lot of circumstances. But because we have these relationships with the CRM companies, and honestly, we've kind of become this was unexpected. Like the CRM companies will call us when things have gotten too complicated for a client and they're getting really big feature requests. They'll say, hey man, this client's going to sign on as long as we can do this, but we can't dedicate the internal resources to do it. So can you guys do it? Or, hey, this client has a gajillion licenses with us and is threatening to leave. Can you please get on the phone with them and solve all of their issues so that way they don't leave us, basically, and it's fun to do. I really like doing that because I never try to CRM migrate anybody unless it's the last resort, basically, because CRM migrations are real painful. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they are. I feel like we've done quite a few, and it's just like, you want to do what?
Yeah, and even if you do it successfully, there's still tears at the end, because you lose a lot when you migrate CRMs. You search criterias, all kinds of stuff. So. Yeah.
Okay, we're excited about the CT one. Do you have an estimate on when you think you'll have that?
No, Calvin, this is not me calling you out if you watch this. No, the ball's in Calvin's court right now. He's trying to figure out, we did a bunch of testing back and forth with a little custom My Business sheet. And now he's just working on a way to get that integrated back into the big CT architecture. So, I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks or whatnot, we have it figured out. But as far as functionality, getting it from a system into CTE, that all exists, being able to add, delete, or update and edit rows, basically. So.
Okay. Yeah. So we've got a few clients on CT, and that's like, it ends up being like one admin's job to kind of like update that sheet all the time. Like you are responsible for that every single day to make sure it's updated and matches everything that we've got going on. So we're super excited about that.
Yeah.
What would be your like number one? For the most part, we work with teams. We have a few brokerages, but like, what would be your number one tip for like automating like a team's workflow?
As far as automating a team's workflow, can you get like a little more? So there's different sections of workflows, right? You have like the front end, the ISA side, the agent side, the transaction side.
I would say like our biggest thing is probably the agent side. Like that would be where I feel like we get kind of more of those stops where like the agents aren't fully automated because they're out and about and doing that kind of thing. So like, what have you seen to kind of make an agent's life a little easier as far as automation goes?
So I'm a big believer in form systems, having forms kind of be the thing that rules everything, right? So forms serve a lot of different purposes. One primarily is that you can require information be edited into a form in a certain way at a certain time in the process. So forms kind of control all the major business processes. Two, having forms for everything really does give you something to kind of beat your team over the head with, which is, hey, I got a new listing appointment. What do I do? Fill out the form. Hey, I got a new listing signed. What do I do? Fill out the form. Hey, I got something under contract. What do I do? Fill out the form. Hey, something closed. What do I do? Fill out the form. There's a form for it all, right? So it just simplifies it, and it gets it to a place within your organization where, some new sales agent shows up and they're so excited because through the weekend they had a listing appointment, they got somebody signed, and they show up at the Monday sales meeting and go, guys, I got a listing appointment. What do I do? And the team responds now with, oh my gosh, it's like, fill out the form. We can't hear Justin say that again. Like, please just fill out the form. They're going to roll their eyes at you. They're going to make jokes about you behind your back about fill out the form. But that's when you've made it. It got all the way into your company culture, is when it's gotten to that juncture, right? So it really does simplify that. And then three, the big deal is that you can chain all of the automation to the backside of the form submission, right? So one of the biggest, we don't want agents, there's a fine line, right? Like one of the big arguments with teams all the time is between the transaction department and the agents. How should that handoff happen? Well, if you leave it up to the transaction coordinators to build that form is going to be 70 fields long, and they're going to ask for what year is the AC, what solar company is it, like all kinds of very detailed information that like an agent's just going to look at that form and be overwhelmed and not want to do it, right? But if you leave it up to the agent's just going to forward a purchase contract off with no context at all and say, best of luck, good luck. We'll see you soon. So there has to be a happy medium, right? So the initial form system should, be no less than 15 or so fields long, or no more than 15 or so fields long. And then, a document uploader. So that way, when you submit that form, it kicks off your transaction process automatically. So as soon as the agent fills out that form, the rest of your team knows they were just notified, hey, here's everything that has to happen moving forward. But in order for that to be successful, you do have to have sorry, I just realized that my baby monitor is on my phone still. And I can hear my infant crying at home, going down for a nap. You have to have standard operating procedures in place, systems like CSU and open to close are absolutely useless to you if you don't have a standard operating procedure for all of those and have checklists built, right? So that's another prerequisite for making it happen. So a lot of teams, we show up and it's disjointed in the middle, and on a lot of the work is training agents to start using the form system and actually building out a standard operating procedure. Once that gets solved, honestly, I'm a big believer that you don't need more than a really great CRM and a really great transaction management software to sell thousands of houses a year. You don't need much more than that.
Yeah, I agree. Once everyone's doing things exactly the same, in theory, it should make everything much, much easier to accomplish. This has been great, Justin. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with any, teams about stuff you do or stuff you've seen that's been really successful?
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of technology out there. There's a ton of it. And depending on what sphere of real estate you are in, you get inundated with more or less of like, here's the new thing, here's the new thing, here's the new thing. And it gets really, really overwhelming as a business owner and leader that does not understand technology to like navigate that, right? And what ends up happening is that then we show up to clients and I ask them, hey, what technologies are you using? And they return me a list of like 32 different softwares that they're signed up for. And I'm like, what are you? This is a nightmare. This is an absolute nightmare. But they were told over and over again, like the next month, oh, you need this thing. Oh, you need this thing. Oh, you need this thing. And they're just following the people in front of them. And that's all good and well, but you honestly have to keep in mind that sometimes the people that are talking about it maybe are making money from you selling it. So try to weed that part out, as to why what is the motivation for talking about it, and that's not true of everybody. Obviously, there's a lot of people that just endorse things because they believe in it, and because they make money on the backside doesn't mean it doesn't make them bad. It's just the reality that they believe in it, and they're going to be a talking mouthpiece for it. But dialing it all back to, okay, what is my CRM? How does it function? Do I have all of my lead sources automatically coming in? Is there a plan for every single lead source? How do I measure my agents? And how do I process this through a transaction? And what do I do when it closes? Those main processes and systems, if those aren't ironed down to the nth degree to where you can just plug somebody into the system and they know how to do it, well, all the rest of the stuff is just bells and whistles and fancy stuff that honestly you shouldn't get onto. There's like an old proverb that says, plow your fields, then build your barn, meaning the barn is the luxury at the end of the day, but where the produce comes from, where the profit comes from is from you doing the hard work to till your field and grow your crops and sell them, right? Yeah. So don't sell out the field just to build a barn. And a lot of the times I see that people getting way over their heads in technology, building all the fancy stuff when the core technology is just garbage. And that's just building on a really bad foundation at the end of the day, right? So I did kind of launch, I saw that need. Obviously, we're an automation agency. It's not super cheap to engage us at the end of the day. It's not outrageously expensive either, but it's not it will not be the cheapest line item on your budget at the end of the day. And we do have a bunch of teams that are just not ready for that yet. Either the income isn't there to engage at that level, or, you know, they're so far on this side of just trying to figure out what systems they need and get their team trained and get the right people in place that it's just not ready for us to step in at that point. So I did start this little coaching thing with a few clients. I got a few on the roster right now where I just meet with them every other week and help them through those early stages to where the thing that breaks my heart, honestly, is getting off of those calls and knowing for sure they're going to show up to some other mastermind, they're going to get sold some other software, and it's going to be bad for them. It's not going to work. And they're going to spend all this time and money and energy trying to develop it, and then frustrate the bejesus out of their staff because they're going to change things so many times. I just wish that I had a way to like save them from that little hurdle that is coming for them. So it's been a lot of fun being able to catch people on this side. And if they ever develop into a full-blown retainer client for Bara Agency as a whole, then that's awesome. If not, then I'm happy that I was able to, you know, use some of the mistakes that I've made over time to keep them from making them. So
that's amazing. We see a lot of clients come into our circle too. They're just kind of like all over the place. They've switched CRMs 10 different times. All the data is all messed up. And I'm like, why did this happen? Like, how did we get to this point right now? So that's awesome. And then I guess I have a question. When it comes to, you start with a new client, you start integrating all of their systems. Do you help train the agents and the staff? You know, I know you make videos and stuff like that, but like, do you get involved with like the agent side of stuff where it's like, hey, this is how you do this whole transaction with our system? Or is it mostly training for the admin staff?
So it depends on the team. We have some teams that have us contracted for 50, 60 plus hours a month, where they've pointed their entire team at us. Like, we're part of the onboarding process. We are essential in their systems and processes. And in those events, agents have questions with stuff. They come to us. They don't go to anybody else. They come to us and get those questions answered. And in our world, the teams assigned to clients is me, a senior systems architect, and a backend developer. So it's stationary. So that way, the people that are assigned to your team know it from the bottom all the way up to the top. They know your systems, they know exactly how it works, right? Yeah. So it really depends. I guess the one limiting factor for us not being in somebody's office all the time is that it is honestly hard for us to implement it all the way. Where things go wrong and have gone wrong in the past is where we have, you know, a team leader, a client that wants the stuff built, but doesn't really have a plan for how they're going to get their team to start using it, right? And we can come up with a plan all day long, but I can't implement it into your team because I'm not there at the end of the day, right? So I weed that out in like our intro calls with clients all the time. Like, hey, this isn't going to go well if you don't want to do it as a team leader. That's fine, but you need to have a director of operations or a COO or somebody that is going to eat, breathe, and sleep all of this technology with us, understand it all, and then have a plan for implementing it and keeping everybody accountable to make sure that it gets into your world. Because if not, then you're paying us to build cool stuff that will never be anything in your world. You'll be frustrated, we'll be frustrated, everybody will be frustrated, and that's just no fun, you know.
You still have an agent kind of doing their own thing, and it closes and they haven't submitted it anywhere. I mean, we've had those a couple times where. Oh,
right. Yeah. And then people coming back and going, oh, the automation's broken. And I'm like, nope. You just, that form back there, when you didn't fill it out when it went under contract. Yeah, that's why it didn't work, because you never started it in the first place, you know? So having somebody to help police that is really important as far as relationships for us and our clients are concerned. But we do record like detailed videos as to how it works, all of that. And then like we can record agent level videos, right? So they'll use those videos for us showing off some new sync or something like that. And then they'll just play that, even though it's not ready, because especially for custom stuff, we've got to we have a debugging process for that, and it's in stages. So after we build something, we don't launch it live to the entire team at once. That's a catastrophe. We build it. If it's true blue custom from the ground up, we build it and then have 7 days of just working with one person on the other side, trying to break it in as many ways as we can to try to catch the big catastrophic errors that might happen and then release it out. But what the teams will do is take our tutorial videos and play it and get the team excited. Like, hey, this is coming. Check out this awesome thing that we're having built for you guys, you know? So that, and then our teams own those videos, so they can download them off of our Loom account and put them into their own procedure manuals and build their own procedures that way. So.
Perfect. I mean, that's awesome. Great. Well, does anyone have any questions?
No, that was awesome.
Yes,
Sounds really exciting.
I can hear Lisa like the most excited because we have multiple clients on her team that I feel like could really benefit from your services. So she's like, please
help streamline things.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, honestly, any questions at all?
I mean, I feel like we're just excited to, you know, hopefully eventually get to work with you on a couple of our teams, because I know that they could really use it. So kind of keep us in the loop on some of the stuff that you've released too, because you know, like CT is a big one. You know, Sisu, we've got some automations going already, but you know, just kind of keeping in a loop on what you've seen, I think would be really cool for all of us to know, so we can kind of share it with our clients. Like, hey, you know, this thing's coming down the pipeline, but like we need to maybe talk about using Bara Agency. So, but
yeah,
thanks for being on our mastermind today, Justin.
Yeah, of course. And I'll definitely keep you guys in mind. Honestly, a lot of that stuff happens on accident. Like the CT thing with Calvin, we had one client that said, man, I hate that I have to do this. So I just reached out to Calvin and said, man, is there any way? Like, can we do this? And sure enough, there is a way to do it. We figured it out, you know? So whenever we come up with some new thing, it's usually some dream that a client has where we go, man, I think that sounds like it's possible. Let's see if we can build it, you know? And then we end up building it and it's real. So.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Justin. And hopefully the baby went down for a nap.
Yeah, I'm sure he's good over there. So thank you guys so much for having me. This is a blast, seriously. And honestly, the work that you guys do keeps so many real estate teams sane. So like, keep it up. It's a really big deal. Just
makes us kind of crazy sometimes, but that's okay.
Right. Yeah. For an automation agency, we have nothing automated on our own back end. So I understand.
Well, thanks everyone. We'll see you next time.
All right. See you.
All right, bye-bye. Bye.